is Michael Burchard. I'm the Chief Diversity and Affirmative Action Officer here at North Hennepin Community College. I just get the opportunity to welcome all of you and thank you all for being here today. We'd just like to put out some personal welcomes. The first one would be to the Osseo School District's American Indian Education Program. Thank you for being here. The Robbinsdale Cooper School District American Indian Education Program, thank you for being here as well. The Anoka Hennepin School District's American Indian Education Program is also here with us today. And then Silas Mallory's anthropology class is also here. So thank all of you for being here, and then also some of our community members that have also chosen to come to today's event. I just want to make a quick announcement to let you know that we're really proud to announce that North Hennepin has formally committed to the American Indian Education Initiative. So there's now a committee on campus that really works to push American Indian education initiative things on campus here. And so if any of you are interested, our next meeting will be on Wednesday, October 18th at 3:15 in CBT 101A. That happens to be my office, but it's big enough. So if any of you are interested in being a part of that committee, please come. Please come. Some of the goals of that committee, just quickly, to continue to see an increase in the number of American Indian students enrolled at North Hennepin, to uncover and educate the campus and its surrounding community to the many aspects of American Indian life, culture, history, and to expose and dismiss myths and stereotypes related to American Indian life, culture, and history. That's some of our goals. Now I get the honor of introducing our guest speakers. Holly and Lolly are members of the Chilhook? Okay, I was close. Singers and dancers group. Polly is a nationally known Native Alaskan storyteller, and in fact, she won first place in storytelling, narration, and oratory at the Alaskan Native Oratory Society competition. That's huge. And they'll give us an overview of the Yupik culture, including traditional Native Alaskan storytelling through drum and dance. So please help me welcome Polly and Lolly.
Ilang kachabaha miulut. Apama atcha ulhan Billy Andrews awutku. Maulung mahlu Cecilia Ayukung Andrews awuk. And what I said was, hello, my name is Polly Andrews and my Chupik name is Napiriuk. I was named after my great-grandfather, and my ancestors come from Chivak, Kusunak, in southwestern Alaska on the Bering Sea coast. And that's where my mother was raised. My mother was raised in the village of Chivak, and my father was raised in the village of Minneapolis. So, Norwegian pride. I know you're out there. So, and also, I wanted to, we always introduce ourselves by who our family is and where we come from. You know, in our region, in Alaska, we don't introduce ourselves by just our name and by what our career or our field or our job is. That's not who we are. We introduce ourselves by who we were named after, and I was named after Napiriuk, my grandmother's grandfather. And we introduce ourselves by our region. When I said Ilanka Jabahamiulmut, that means my family comes from Chivak. My ancestors come from Chivak, and that's where I have ties to. So traditionally, we always name, when someone is born in our family, we give them the name of someone who's already passed on, usually within our family or within the community, because we believe that if we name our child after this person, they're going to carry on those characteristics of that person. And are there North American Indian people in the room? Okay. Do you do the same thing? Have names for your children? I think a lot of us do. Are named after people. So we can. Wow! Bethelami? Wow, cool. Yeah, Lolly and I lived there for 5 years. We got some Yupiks in the room. That's what I heard. I was walking, across the parking lot, and this little raven, or actually, do they have ravens? Maybe it was a crow. But that crow flew overhead and he said, "Hey, Polly," and I said, "Hey, what?" And he goes, "There's going to be some Yupiks over there this morning." And I go, "Oh, yay, great." And look, there they are. So, my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, she'll be 3 in December. Her Yupik name is Nang Alga, which means to stand up, and she was named after my great aunt. And my son here, he's 4 months old. His first name is Lichtak. When he was born, we decided to only name him traditional names, that we weren't going to have a Gasak or a Western name for him. So his first name is Lichtak, and he was named after my significant other's great-grandfather, and Lichtak means the fire. His middle name is Biurok, and Biurok was my appa's name, my grandfather's name. And Biurok means to strive. And my honey's last name is Gayagayok. So his full name is Lichtak Biurok Gayagayok, which basically, if you put those names together, it can say the fire that strives to be loved. So when we were at the hospital right after he was born, we were at the front desk there, and the lady at the computer, she says, "So what is your baby boy's name?" And I said, "Lichtak." And she goes, "What's his middle name?" And I said, "Biurok." And she said, "Okay, I can't say that. Okay, last name, please." "Gayagayok." She said, "I'll just call him baby boy." So anyways, the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to give an overview of what Alaska Native life is like today. There are still a lot of things that we carry on, that we practice. Every year I go to fish camp, which is where my family goes. We leave our village and we get into a boat and we go up the Kuskokwim River where our fish camp is, and we cut fish for about 2 months. The boys have the responsibility of getting into the boat and drift netting, which they carry a large net drifts with the boat, and all kinds of salmon get caught in the net as they drift down the river. And us women are responsible for, we take in the fish and we cut the fish and we hang it in our fish camp to smoke and dry. And that way we're able to eat fish all winter long. So Alaska Native lifestyle is very subsistence oriented. Everything we do revolves around the season. According to the season is what we gather. And then all of our jobs and responsibilities revolve around subsistence life. So I wanted to show you that aspect because life in rural Alaska is so much different than urban Alaska. And what I want people to know is we still practice those, do we? Yeah, we still practice subsistence. We still practice fish camp. We still practice spring camp where we gather ducks and birds and muskrats and beaver. We still practice berry camp. During the berry season, we will travel for miles into the wilderness and pick berries for several weeks. Everyone does, the children, the grandparents, our parents, we all work together. And I wanted to show you that aspect before we show you the good stuff like the dance and the storytelling, which is my favorite. So first we have here, this is a map of Alaska. The colored map shows all of the language regions of Alaska. And the one I'm going to be showing you personal family pictures of fish camp and subsistence life and village life is going to be that dark blue region there that says Central Yupik. Because where we come from, we don't call each other Eskimos. Eskimo is not an indigenous term. It's not an Alaska Native term. We call ourselves Yupik and Chupik and Inukbak, which means the real people. Eskimo was a term that was given, it is a Western term. So when I say Yupik, I'm basically saying Eskimo. So there is the region we're going to be talking about there, the blue area right there, the dark blue. And our neighbors up there is Inukbak. That's where, anyone seen the movie Big Miracle? Yeah, with the whale in My Honey's in that movie, he was an extra. He was a whale hunter. So he was a really hot one. He can't be here today. His name is Asi Gairayok, and some things came up. He couldn't be here, but that's the drum he made. We're going to be sharing some songs. The song that I sang as you all were coming in this morning was a song that he composed about the weather elements. He composed that last year, and I wanted to share that with you. We're also going to be yuhaking or dancing a song that was composed by his uncle. And yeah, so this is the region where we come from. Our Chivak family is from the Bering Sea coast along the edge, but many of the pictures I'm going to be showing you are more inland on the river, Kuskokwim River. So, and all of the colorful shades, everything that you see blue is the Eskimo regions, or what you would see as Eskimo, but we call ourselves Yupik, Chupik, and Inupiaq, and Siberian Yupik. The other colors within interior Alaska are Indian, Athabascan. We call them Athabascan, but they're the Indian population, similar to, you know, Ojibwe, Lakota, Navajo. In fact, the Indians here in interior Alaska, they have a similar language to Navajo. So that's all the other regions that you see there, the orange, the purple. It says Quichin, Koyakan, Tanana, Atna, Tanaina. Those are all the indigenous Indian populations. Okay, so what I first wanted to teach is children have a role in the village. When me and Lolly grew up in our villages, we had things to do, we had a purpose to fulfill. Everyone in the family has a purpose, even the little boys and the little girls. Lolly and I would always pick berries with the family, and at fish camp, since we were too little to handle knives, we couldn't cut fish, so our grandparents gave us the fish heads and told us to walk down to the river bank and make sure they're nice and clean. Clean the king salmon heads so we can make them for food. We boil them, and we also bury them, and they age for a little while. It's like similar to, I don't know, lutefisk, I guess, but it's just the Eskimo version of stink fish, which is really good, but you wouldn't be able to understand it unless you grew up with it. But it's stinky. So here, the first word says, Aghanat Bijilyahait, girls' roles. Girls have a role within the family, which is pretty much surrounds the home life, and maqirak, which is to gather from the land. And the boys' roles, Angun Bijilyahait, they have roles to follow. Like a boy in our family would go with my uncles to learn how to drift net. They'd learn, you know, the river currents. They'd learn how to control the net and control the boat so that they won't, you know, capsize or go over. It's very dangerous because the net can actually catch on to wood poking up from the water. And we've been in situations where we cut out the net, but they really need to learn subsistence practices like moose hunting, bird hunting, seal hunting, and they still do that. So that's the boys' roles. And growing up, the most important thing that you can teach a child is ikayu jabak, the concept of helping and sharing. Because our communities would not be able to thrive or survive without ikayu jabak, helping and sharing. Everyone helps for the whole community, not just yourself or your family, but everyone helps each other. Like, there are widows and elders in the village who are not able to subsist anymore. So what we do is we make sure that they have that food and that meat, and we're always contributing to elders and people who are unable to. So that is a big thing in our villages. The idea of helping and sharing. The number one thing to teach a child. And this is a picture of Yulok, traditional dance that was taken in my village. It's kind of dark, but I just wanted people to understand that there are many elements of our culture which are still practiced. Language is still very much alive. In my village of Chivak, I would probably say about 75% of our village is fluent. I'm personally not fluent, but I understand a lot, and I know a lot of the basic things that I grew up with, you know, and so I can understand it. But in my honey's village, Asi's village, his village, Chifaganak, Shafornik, on the coast by Tuksuk Bay and they are 100% language speaking. There are little 5-year-olds and little 3-year-olds that only grow up with their traditional language. And whenever I see them from Chifornik and they're talking in the Yupik language, I look down, oh, so cute, you still talk your language. So song and dance is very practiced in our region, in our Yupik and Chupik regions. Subsistence practices, as I described, are still alive. We probably consume 75 or 80% of only subsistence foods, and the rest 15 or 20% we get from the store, which we have little stores that are smaller than this room. But it's too expensive to shop at those stores, so that's why Native people, rural people, always have to practice subsistence. And storytelling. So some of the things we'll go through that are very different from an urban community. Language, the foods we eat, the subsistence economy, the modes of transportation, and the social framework of our family. This is the house my auntie lives in Chivak. And these are a couple of snow machines parked outside of my grandparents' house in Chivak, which is the only way we get around in the wintertime. We don't have cars or trucks. So yurak. Yurak is what Molly and I are going to show you today, and that's traditional dance that is still very practiced in our communities. So during yurak, the community comes together and we share dance as a form of storytelling and entertainment. Yurak has different purposes and different meanings. Usually our people, in traditional times, we would use yurak as a form of prayer or a form of giving thanks to our Creator. Through a dance and through motions, we give thanks to our Creator above for the resources and the land resources that He gives our people to survive. So it was a form of prayer, it was our form of church, our form of worship. We also use it as a form of entertainment. There's a lot of goofy songs that people, compose, and we use yurak to tell a story so the village can see. And this lower picture here, this is during my grandfather's funeral. My grandfather, Billy Ulkan Andrews, he passed away November of 2006, so we all went there for his funeral. And he's in his casket there in the church. And his daughter, my auntie, Uyuyukabak Ulkan, is dancing behind with his 2 nephews. So they're holding kind of like a last yurak during his funeral before we carry his casket outside and bury him. But this yurak is held during his funeral. So people of all ages still practice yurak. As you can see here, here are the men drumming. Men always drum. There's from young boys to the elders. And my grandfather was the lead drummer in our community. And up here is the women dancing. We held a big yurak after his funeral. The community got together and we celebrated his life through song and dance. We sang his songs, we danced his songs, and we came together, for that final dance for him. So these are some more pictures of my family. The family structure within an Alaska Native village is really, really different too. It's not unusual for 3 or 4 generations to grow up living in one house. The house that I grew up with my grandparents, I was raised in the house with my grandparents, their children, and their children. So there was 10 of us within a small 3-bedroom hut house, and we all grew up together. Because if you think about it, the whole family needs each other. We're not expected at the age of 18 to just fly out of the home and go do something else and get your own home. We always stay together, and it's still like that. And each family member has roles and responsibilities within that household. Elders are really, really important. They're still highly respected and revered within our communities. We look to elders as educators, as leaders, advisors, cultural educators, and counselors. You always look towards the knowledge of an elder. Elders are the first most valued person in the household. Even though they may not be able to walk anymore, even though they may not be able to drift net, guviak, subsist anymore, their knowledge is still very, very valuable for everyone else in the household. So, this is the difference between, Fred Meyer's are Cub Foods, or as my grandma would say, Cub Foods, or Rainbow Foods. So that's Fred Meyer's, which is our grocery store in the urban community in Anchorage. But on the right side there, that is fish camp to us. That is what we have to do every single year. These are my auntie and her daughter cutting fish, king salmon, and this is mostly the fish that I cut last season. Last season was a good season. This season was not good at all. But not your average farmer, don't you know? Yeah, I'm half Norwegian. So these are pictures. This is my two aunties, and they're guviaking. They're drift netting for the fish, basically dragging the net along the Kuskokwim River with them. The fish get caught in the net. They pull in the net and take out the fish. My Appa and my Anna, they all had mostly daughters. There's 12 sons and daughters that they had, and 9 of them were daughters, so he had no choice but to teach them all the men's work. So he taught them all the men's work, and they are rowing in my grandfather's wooden boat. And some people still traditionally make boats like this, instead of buying the steel Lund boats and things like that. This boat was traditionally handmade by my grandfather. And here's my Auntie Nina. This is when I was at fish camp last year. While we were smoking fish and filling our bujukjevik, or our smokehouse, somebody caught a beaver, so they brought it home, and she's just starting to cut the beaver, because we also dry whatever meat we can. Beaver meat is really, really good and tasty, and she uses the skin for something else. So this is just a quote from Jonathan Solomon, Fort Yukon. Fort Yukon is a Quichin Athabascan Indian village, and he defines subsistence. You cannot break out subsistence or the meaning of subsistence or try to identify it, and you can't break it out of the culture. The culture and the life of my native people are the subsistence way of life. It goes hand in hand with our culture and our language and all of our activities. So subsistence is just not something you do. It's not just hunting, not just something to do. Subsistence is a way of life. If you think about it, if the whole people in the family all have things to do that surround subsistence, that's a way of life. That's why we have to protect, our subsistence rights as indigenous peoples, because that's who we are. That subsistence is what makes our culture. Subsistence is why we have the languages that we have. Subsistence is why we still have the stories that we have. Subsistence is why we are who we are, because it's a way of life. It's not just hunting. It's giving people a purpose, giving people a role. And there's a lot of things going on in Alaska right now, like fishing closure dates and fishing being open to sport fishing and commercial fishing, and however people in the subsistence villages are struggling right now. But so we have to hold on to that, because it's a way of life. It's not just something to do. It's a culture, and it's a people. It's a survival of people. This is the produce department in my village. There's not much of a selection. There's some cartons of eggs there, and a few carrots, 3 cabbages, and I don't know anyone in the village who cooks with a cabbage. And 1 tomato. And this is, the prices are really, really high in the village. Like a box of cereal in Anchorage in the urban community will be like $2.99. A box of cereal in my village will be more like $8 or $9.99. The village's prices are very sky high because they have to ship them out by small cargo airplane. There are no roads that go to our rural communities. So if you think about it, small cargo plane, which is usually single, maybe double engine, or barge throughout the summer months. We can't get fuel except only in the summer when the river is open and barges can go in and out, so we usually run out of fuel and gas. I couldn't even make it home the last time I went to my village because our village had run out of gas and I was stuck there, so I had to arrange for a small single-engine airplane to come pick me up and bring me to the bigger hub so I could fly back home because there was no more fuel in our village. Transportation. We do not have paved roads, we don't have street signs, we don't have lights or anything. To get to places in the village, we usually walk. This picture is outside of the high school in my village of Chibak, and you can see it's only snow machines in the parking lot. There's no cars and no trucks, just snow machines. And there's my family on their way to go to fish camp. I guess I didn't go to fish camp that day, so I just waved goodbye and snapped a picture, and they were gone for a while. But we do have rivers, we have oceans, and we have snowy trails that lead to different communities, and we travel that way. So I just wanted to demonstrate how different a rural community is from an urban community. The language and styles of communication are different. The family and community structures that we have are different. We all live together. Subsistence, it's a subsistence economy, more so than a cash one. And another thing is there really are no jobs within the village. Modes of transportation. And this is a picture that I took one day when I was coming back from driftnet. I went out with the boys just to go have some fun and driftnet with them. But when I was coming back, my family was sitting on the log right there, and they were burning a dead moose over there because, well, the moose had died on the riverbank, and we covered it with lots of wood, and we kept it burning for like 2 days just to get rid of it. Paul Umkabuk said, everything happens in cycles. When I spoke to Paul, he's one of the leaders within the cultural education community in Anchorage, I said, Paul, what do I do if I feel like I have to be here in Anchorage in college, but I feel like I need to be home with my grandparents learning my language. I feel like I need to be there learning these valuable things that basically are disappearing with the elders. And I said, I feel torn between two places. I have my Gussup family, I have my urban ties, but I have my village ties, and that's where I want to be. And Paul said, it's okay to feel that way. I went through what you're going through. There was a time when I had to leave Kotzebue and I had to go to Fairbanks and pursue my education. It's okay to be where you're at. You got to do what you got to do, but things happen in cycles. You can do this right now, but you can go back. You can take what you learned and take it back home with you and learn more from your elders. And then teach others in your community about the things that you learned. So that's something that I valued that he said to me, is that everything happens in cycles. So that's the end of the presentation. I just wanted to show you that slideshow to have a better understanding before we go on to other things. So, hi Ramona. I love the earrings that you gave me. I went to a concert. She gave me these really beautiful Lakota Indian earrings last Christmas. And I went to a concert this summer. My baby's first concert. It was Buffy St. Marie. She came over to Homer, so we drove 4 hours to this concert, and I had the awesome earrings at the concert. I felt so cool. So you can say that Buffy St. Marie saw your earrings. So, okay. What we would like to do next is we want to show you traditional dance, Yuhak. And as I was saying before, Yuhak has many purposes within our community. It's not just a form of entertainment, it's a spiritual form of prayer and a form of worship too. So the first song we'd like to show you is called Magul Ren, and that was composed by my honey Aussie's uncle, who comes from the Bering Sea coast. He comes from the village of Chifaganak or Shafornik, but I think the person who composed the song was either from Tuksuk Bay or Shafornik. Do you know? With Magulgan, I hear wolves howling. But this song was composed because his uncle went out subsisting into the wilderness, into the tundra, and while he was out there, he could hear wolves howling. So one of the things we're going to be doing during the motion of this song, Magolgan, howling, that symbolizes howling. Nito nga, I hear them. Mavukpa over there. And then this part is a filler. And then Waiyaha, when we do this motion, I think we don't know this for sure. Only the person who composed the song knows it. But what we think is that he was talking about the Ichjinraks, the little people. Back in our communities, we also have stories about little people, similar to how European countries, and in Norway and Sweden, and those European countries have stories about little gnomes and things, but we have those two Ichjinraks, little people, so Waiyaha. And so this song is called I Hear Wolves Howling, and it's on number 2 on that disc. Okay, so before we start that song, I wanted to explain the regalia. This kaspak was made by my grandmother. She sewed it, and these are the traditional wear that we have in our communities. She's a very skilled sewer. And Lolly, do you know where your kaspak came from?
I bought it at a craft show.
So not as glamorous as my grandmother's, but women wear these kinds with the skirts, and the men would wear the shortened version with no skirt. And these are headdresses. We use them for traditional dance. Mine is made of, a lot of the times they're made of beaver skin like that. This looks like it has fox or wolf, and this has a little bit of mink, and this has seal skin right here with decorative beads. And our, number 2, our dance fans are made out of the neck of the caribou. And these are woven with grass by the women in our villages. Maybe more up. also originates from the same region on the Bering Sea coast. And I think this was composed by someone in Tuxuk Bay, but what it's called is the Blessing Song, and people also know it as the Purification Song. So in this song, when we make this motion like this, Dava Navamkin, it's similar to smudging, how North American Indians and Indian people smudge the air with sage. We do the same thing. So this motion symbolizes smudging. And then Hyuga Navamkin, you're purifying yourself. That smoke is coming across your body. And there's going to be other motions, like when you see Lali and I do a motion like this and step back like this. That symbolizes seal hiking, because what the men do when they're seal hiking, they take that rope and they wrap it around that body, their body, so they can pull the seal in, because the seal is really heavy. And it takes a lot for one man to haul a whole entire seal into the boat or onto the ice. So when you do that motion, that symbolizes swinging a rope around your body and pulling that seal in. So, but this song symbolizes more of the sacred side of yoga and why we do it, to practice that, that spiritual aspect and that giving thanks to the Creator and the need for us to bless ourselves and to keep pure.
myself before I left away and shied away. She's got the gift of public speaking. I'm sure one or two of you can relate to the fact that I just don't do it. I'm Lali, and my Yupik name is Nugata, and I'm from everywhere she's from. Thank you.
And just to, demonstrate another purpose that we have for Yup, we've talked about, in the first song, he was telling a story about his wilderness experiences in the wilderness, listening to wolves and hearing wolves, and seal hunting and all that. So, and then Davag Navamkan, that explained why we do it on a spiritual level and why it's significant, with prayer and keeping ourselves pure and blessed and clean. So, and another song I'd like to share with you kind of has the entertainment aspect to it. This song was composed by my honey, which you heard his voice drumming in the CD. Doesn't he sound really hot? He's really hot. He's got this long hair, and he's a tall Yupik man, and he knows how to catch a seal better than anyone else I know. And he made this drum here too. This drum was made by him, and traditionally he makes the drums, when they're traditional, they're made out of seal skin, but this drum in specific is made with airplane fabric, and he cuts these woods out and steams them or something, and then makes them into a circle, and then he puts the airplane fabric on here and uses a very type of strong sinew or something like that to go all the way around it. So that song that he composed is called the I'm itchy and I'm paddling down the river song. And he composed it while he was moose hunting with his friend Vern and John. They were both in a canoe, and they were paddling along. And whenever he looked behind him in the canoe, Vernon was scratching all over the place, and he just thought that looked so goofy. He goes, I'm going to make a song about that. So the motions of these songs. Does anyone want to learn a song here? Come up and learn a song. Anybody?
No.
Come on, don't be you.
No.
Hurry up. Yeah, okay, we got it. Brave volunteer. Anybody else? It's a simple song, and it's just a goofy song. Hey, another one there. Anyone else? Don't be shy, don't be shy. You can tell everybody, I learned to yumak today. I Eskimo danced.
Oh my God.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, the verses of these songs go, Javu u uyako hui. Javu u uyako hui, which is I am paddling. Ungila sha galo o, and I'm itchy. Okay? And then when I go, McLaren River Ami, at the McLaren River, Atanya, I go, and I'm dancing. Okay? Can you ever paddled before? Okay, you're gonna paddle. You ever itchy scratchy? You can, and then when I go, you can choose to itch any part of your body that you want. You don't have to just go like this. You can just go. There's mosquitoes everywhere, and I know mosquitoes in Minnesota bite. Okay. Jabu uyako huyumina kabalo o jabu uyako huyumina kabalo o McLaren River Ami Atanya yako hui ayi iya ayayi iya ayayi Jabu uyako huyumina Jabu yakpo hui ungila saralo. Jabu yakpo hui ungila saralo. McLaren River on me. Atanga yakpo hui. Aye. You're still not doing it. Aye. It's a little faster. Jabu yapo hui ungila saralo. McLaren River on me. Atanga yapo hui. Aye ya all right. Well, thank you. You all did really, really awesome. I'll give you 2 brownie points. Thank you. So that was just a song about Itchy Scratchy. And usually the men would be behind us drumming, and we would be dancing. And traditionally, when the men are up, they're always on their knees. So they would be on their knees dancing in front of us women, and we would be behind them, standing and kind of like following them. So I just wanted to share a little short song. It was composed by my uncle John Bingayak. And John Bingayak, you know the elder in the movie Big Miracle? The elder native man? That's my uncle John Bingayak, and he's from Chivak, which is where we're from. And he composed a song called Gakahuk Jawyal Rikpa, which means, where's my drum? And he composed this song because one day he was missing his drum, and he was asking, where's my drum? Where's my drum? In Jukstun, you know, the Jukvik language. And he composed this song, and it's about him going into the wilderness or into the tundra and looking for his song. And I just wanted to sing it for you because I think it's a beautiful song. And I asked him permission if I could use his song, and yeah, go ahead. So here I go. of my presentation, the one I've been looking forward to is storytelling. This is my specialty. I love to dance, and I love to eat fish heads, and I love to cut fish, but I love to tell stories. And stories, I know that there are some American Indians in the room. Raise your hands again. Did you guys grow up with stories? You guys grew up with stories. That's the way us Native people teach each other from a young age. When we grow up learning about why, you should do certain things and why you shouldn't do certain things through story. Alaska Native people are an oral people. We never had a written language before. We never had, any kind of books before. We only had a spoken language. And we learned growing up through stories from our different regions. And say, for example, I never heard from my grandparents or my aunties, you shouldn't stay out late, or when you come home, you're going to go to timeout. I never heard that. I never heard, you shouldn't stay out till midnight, or else you're going to be tired in the morning, or I'll ground you. I never heard that. What I heard as a little girl, if you stay out late, that old woman is going to take you and put you into her parka, and you'll never be seen again. That was so scary. And I heard, if you stay out late, there's going to be a ghost in front of the door, and he's not going to let you in. And that motivates anyone to go home early. We don't want to be put into an old lady's parka and never seen or heard of again, So I wanted to share some of those stories. Some of those stories taught us why we shouldn't stay out late. Some of those stories taught us how come we can't ask too much questions. Some of those stories taught us why we need to be hopeful. Some of those stories taught us how come it's important to be neat in your house. And the first story that I would like to share with you is called the Talking Biluguks. Can everyone say Biluguks? That's very good. Biluguks are what everyone here would probably know as muklaks. Our people don't call the boots muklaks. What happened was a long time ago, when Western people came, they saw our ancestors and our people wearing the fur skin boots. And the Western people said, "What's that?" And then our people looked down and said, "Muklak." Because our people thought, what do you mean, what's that? They're boots. So they said, "Muklak," because that is the seal skin that they're made of. Muklak is seal skin. It doesn't mean boots. So when you hear that word muklak, you just know that you learned it. I was actually seal skin, and it's not the word for boots. The word for boots in our communities is biluguks. So this story is called the Talking Biluguks, and it was told to me by my cousin in the village of Chivak. When I was a small girl, I had come in and I put my shoes in the old cow. I didn't pay attention. She looked at me and she goes, "You need to put your shoes like that." And I said, "How come?" She said, "I'm going to tell you the story about the Talking Biluguks." And so she proceeded to tell me this story, which to this day I'm always going to put my shoes like that. And so long time ago, when there were no modern, and this really did happen, she was telling me this happened in our region, Pisunak, on the Bering Sea coast that you saw a map of. So there was a man. There were no modern homes, no modern appliances, but he had come back from the tundra, from the wilderness. He was subsisting all day long. So he was so tired, he unlaced his biluguks, and he walked into his sod house, and he just put his shoes, and he went off to bed. While he was laying in bed in the middle of the night, knowing that he was the only one inside of his sod house, he was awakened by voices. Two voices were speaking in the Chupik language. He could hear two men's voices in his sod house speaking the Chupik language. And he thought to himself, I'm the only one in my sod house. Where are those voices coming from? And he was so terrified. He took a match and he lit his seal oil lamp. And he took his lamp and he started going in the direction of where those voices were coming from, speaking the Chupik language. And as soon as he saw what it was, he was filled with terror. You know what it was? His two beluguks were facing each other. And they were having a conversation. He got so scared he ran over to his beluguks. And he went like that. He put him like that. And they quit talking. So I told my little cousin this story a couple of years ago when I went to Calskag back home to visit. Because I walked in her porch, all of her shoes were really messy and they were in the old house. So I told her of the story about the talking beluguks. And she goes, Polly, what? Let's check the porch. I go, yeah. And we looked in the porch, all the shoes, some were like this, some were like this, some were having conversation. I bet you better fix those shoes up. And so we fixed up all the shoes, lined them up nice and neat. A couple hours later, we were going to walk out the door and go take a walk to the store. And we just walked out of the door. All the shoes were neat. We just walked out of the door. She goes, Polly, what? Look. And I looked, one more pair of shoes facing just like that. I go, you better fix them. So she hurried up and she took her shoes and she fixed them. So I'm just warning all you. I know probably nobody in the room is wearing beluguks now. In fact, I have dance goes today. You guys might be wearing your Nike shoes, your Merrill shoes, whatever shoes you got. But always make sure when you walk into the door of your house, even though you don't live in a sound house, put your shoes just like that, because you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night to find your Nike shoes having a conversation. The next story I'd like to tell, we grew up in a village where, there's curfew for the children. The young kids have to be, back in the houses by 9 o'clock, or the village police officers will go around and say, go home, I'm going to tell your Anna you were out late. And one of the stories that I grew up hearing about why I should never come home when it's after dark is I always grew up hearing a story about how several individuals had gone home at midnight. They didn't listen to their aunties or their uncles, and they decided to go home middle of the night. And what they found, there's a story about this being. If you go home late, you will find a being standing in front of your doorway. And you can't see a face. All you can see is darkness, but you can see the shape of the being. And you're told growing up, if you were to go home and see this being in front of your doorway, there are certain instructions that you have to follow. You can't just push the being out of the side and go inside. You can't just leave and go to your auntie's house. That being is going to appear in front of your auntie's house too. There are certain things that you must do if you see this being standing in front of your door. Even though you're scared, even though you're terrified, we were told to do this. And several people have experienced this being in front of their doorway. We have to extend our hand and place our hand on this being's chest. Even though you're scared, and even though this being feels cold and you don't know what it is, you need to place your hand on its chest and begin rubbing this being in order to make it go away. Rub this being, and with your other hand, you put that hand on top of the being's head, and you have to press that being down into the ground slowly. Once you feel that being start to go down, you can follow it. And you're not done, and the being won't go away until he's gone all the way through the ground. And when he's gone, that's when you're free to get up, open your door, and walk in. And that's how you know it won't bother you after that. So growing up, you know, I grew up terrified of that story. I never wanted to be late going home. And about 5 years ago, I was visiting my home village again, and I left my grandparents' house, and I went to go visit my auntie. We were visiting, chatting away, catching up on times. And when I looked at the time, it was getting close to midnight, and I thought, I better go home. I bet my grandma wonders where I am. And I don't want that thing to be in front of the door. So it was really dark, and I opened the door I put on my boots, and I opened up the door to step outside, and it was really dark. But when I opened the door, I was immediately hit with terror and fear, because right there to my left, I could see a shape of a human being standing right next to me. And I was so scared. I said, please don't let it be that thing. I saw it standing directly to my side. It had a head and shoulders and a body. And I could barely see what it was, but I went like this. And it crinkled. You know what it was? It was somebody's coat hanging on a nail. I was so scared. I said, oh, yay, I have another chance. I'm fine. That thing didn't follow me. And I went home, and I was so relieved. So relieved. Another story that I learned within my community, it teaches the importance of why we should always be hopeful, you know, where we are. And I learned this when I was 5 years old. I was at fish camp, and me and my Anna, my grandmother, and my Anna, we call our grandmother Anna. Me and my Anna and my cousin were the only ones at fish camp. And there are no houses, there are no communities for many miles. You're the only ones. When you're there on the Kuskokwim River at fish camp, you don't have neighbors, you don't have people there. And I grew so lonely for my family. I grew lonely for my cousins back home in the village. And I told my cousin, I said, I feel lonely and sad. She said, come to the river with me. And I followed her to the river. She was 12 years old and I was 5, so I really looked up to whatever she told me. She brought me to the river and she said, did you know if you find the perfect green rock, you can make a wish. And if you throw that rock into the river, that green rock, your wish will come true. And I got so happy. We both began looking for green rocks. And when I had seen the perfect green rock, I bent over and I picked up that rock. And in my 5-year-old mind, I said, I'm going to choose the perfect wish. I closed my eyes and I held that rock in my hand and I said, I wish that one day I will have $100. And I threw that rock into the Kuskokwim River. And I still haven't seen that $100.
Oh, God.
But I just want to thank you for all coming today. Koyana Tailuji. I wanted to tell you those stories because they are so important in the way that us Alaska Native children grew up in our communities. These stories told us how to live. They told us what to do, where to go. They told us where our ancestors come from. And I hope that you'll remember when you go home, you better put your shoes just like that. Koyana Dailuji, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Up front, there is some jewelry. You picked jewelry up in front. And so if you're interested in checking that out, you're welcome to. And we'd just like to say thank you again to Polly and Lolly for this terrific day. Thank you.